Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play set in the Eberron campaign world. It being Friday, it is time for another KSA, where we take questions from our wonderful viewers about our characters and about the world and the story, and occasionally entirely random things. So thank you all for submitting questions and for watching so far. So obviously, we have Casey today, player of Shade. So this episode that we just finished, Dark and Full of Errors, was
such a good title.
Thank you. I liked that one. Yeah, was an interesting one as far as Shade goes, in my opinion, because it's largely. I'm sorry, Dark and Full of Errors was a couple back. We just did Return to the Nest.
Right.
Was an interesting one because it was largely Shade is kind of at the center of a conflict swirling around her with Esri, Ari, Pog, and Shade is kind of in the middle, and Shade's only real position has been, why aren't we being nice to each other? In that conflict, at least. So I'm curious, how does that, as Shade's player and as, the person inside Shade's head, how does that work? How does that feel, being kind of the one stuck in the middle of this weird multi-sided argument about what went down last night?
Shade is completely unqualified to be in this position. She is not good at consoling people. She's not good at empathizing with them. She feels like this is her role in this situation. Mm-hmm. That's why she does ask and listen, and the way that I see her and the way that I think about that is she wants them to stick together, and conflict can drive people apart. And so she is learning how to interact with people, but as we see with her pats, like, she doesn't have any wisdom to offer or conflict resolution tactics. It's just, those are feelings that you have, and you have those feelings. That's like bury them deep down. Don't talk about them. These are not good suggestions, but definitely her techniques.
Yeah. We saw, I think, a slightly different side of Shade 2 episodes back in the episode Dark and Full of Errors, where Shade kind of dresses down Ari and Esri before allowing them to wake up Pog. This was very popular on the Discord. Shade going all, I think someone said Mama Fox on them. Oh, kitty.
I liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is adorable, but she's also being a troublemaker. So that was not just to show her off. She is cute.
Also a kitty.
Right. Who knows what buttons she's pushing? She wasn't there like 2 seconds ago.
Hi, Stealth.
So sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yes.
So we haven't really seen Shade assert herself over other characters very much. What brings it out there?
It is. I think it was interesting. I think it may be disappointing to our listeners because Casey, the player, wants it to be because of her love of Pog and selflessness. But Ari has told her several times up until that point that he's not going to leave. It doesn't matter. He has absolutely consoled her repeatedly. Esri attacked her, and that made her realize that, okay, Esri doesn't care that that Shade is socially awkward and, not the nicest person. And so that interaction made Shade feel more comfortable in being in conflict. She hadn't really had a conflict with Pog. That was her fear of, if he doesn't like the way they react, if he doesn't like them getting mad at him or, disagreeing with his plan, what's his resolution going to be? How is he going to react to that? I don't want him to get upset and leave. And so that was an attempt to avoid conflict. Obviously didn't work. But it was definitely we stick together. How can I make them stick together? Well, I can keep them together by not saying anything.
Mm-hmm. This episode was, we went back to the Wayfinders and consulted with Hallis Martin again. Last time, the first time we had this consultation, Hallis was able to give Shade some potential clues about the dreams that she's been having. Where's Shade's head on all of that? Is it just not right now, or is it wouldn't it, just be nicer if we just left and looked for the elf city?
Casey, the player, is dying to pursue it. It's so hard. Not every interaction to be like, and we want to find out about the map, right? That's not the map, excuse me, about the dreams. And so that has been very hard not to really try to push in that direction. Mm-hmm. But Shade's coping mechanisms is to, go along with the plan. If it's a bad plan or a stupid plan, she will try to make it better, but it's survival. The kids took priority. Their lives were at risk. She was directly related to that, and she has a soft spot for kids. I don't know that that's the right word, but definitely they have something she never had, and she wants to protect that for them. And so that was not even an option to pursue going into the jungle and looking for things or asking people questions about this dream. But it's mostly, well, what do the people in her life need to resolve? What direction do they want to go? And how can she help do that? Mm-hmm. But I would like to know.
Well, I'm obviously I'm just trolling you with it. I'm going to drop it entirely, and it's never going to come to anything. So,
correct. That is
sorry.
My fear.
Yeah. All right. Well, we had a few listener questions. One is from Nathan, which I really like this question. Nathan says, I'd love to hear more from Casey/Shade on what her standards are for when someone needs to die. And would she feel that, I think this is very interesting. Secondary question, would she feel differently about the idea of killing Tommel if he didn't have a mark?
This is such a good question, and I have to admit my first thought was, she has a flowchart. Does this person need to die? Top of the flowchart, are they threatening your life? If it's a yes, they should die. If it's a no, okay, there are some follow-up questions.
I guess a better question perhaps is, since Tommel is obviously threatening people that Shade wants to protect, why is Shade set against killing Tommel? Is perhaps probably a more answerable question from Shade's perspective, since I don't imagine Shade actually has a rubric.
Correct. I like the idea of a flow chart, but she doesn't actually have one. Nathan's question is absolutely spot on. It's absolutely about the aberrant mark. Mm-hmm. If he was not marked, she would not be fighting to protect him. She is projecting her fears onto how they're treating him, and how they're reacting to him. And that's the difference. He is threatening people she cares about. He's threatening to use people she cares about. He's putting Shade in danger. If she weren't afraid about the lasting consequences of the decision that they're making in regards to herself, yeah, she would totally be in camp kill Tommel. I'm so sorry, Laura.
So I'm curious, as a follow-up, to kind of explore something that was discussed a little bit in the episode. Is what she's projecting a genuine fear that the others will one day decide that she needs to die? Or is it more just that being an aberrant marked individual has often caused that kind of reaction in others?
A little bit of both, but as comfortable as she's getting, as solid as the relationships that she's building with the three others, she still has that fear. I mean, she was with her tribe for years before the aberrant mark showed, and they abandoned her. And so if they can change on her, if the people who raised her can change on her like that, what's people she's been with 2 years? And just the unknown of it's shifting and changing. What does that mean? What could it mean? How will that impact the way people see her?
Yeah. And
so she does fear that they could decide that she had crossed a line. And, if this is the way we solved it this time, is that how they're going to solve the problem of Shade later?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. All right. Well,
it's so
speaking
sad.
It is. It is. It is. Speaking of Laura, Laura has a question. Casey, when Shade talked about bad stuff she's done, is she referring to her mark, or is she referring to other secret backstory stuff?
I just love the phrase "secret backstory stuff."
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
It needs to be an episode title at some point. It's like an all flashbacks episode. Secret backstory stuff.
Oh man, that would be so much fun. Mm-hmm. That would be great. Well titled, Laura. A little bit of both. She was in the program because of the crime that she committed. And the crime that she committed was 100% because of her lack of control over her mark. And so tying her mark to doing bad things that she couldn't control is part of it, and part of her fear of Tommel and that whole situation. And then it also is, the at least my way of visioning it, which could be wrong. I have not played in this world before. But when aberrant marks show, they don't always show physically up at the same time that they show the power. Like, there isn't always that connection. And so we haven't done that flashback, but there's obviously consequences of her to her tribe of the appearance of her mark.
Yeah. A similar question about secret backstory stuff. Eric asks, what is Shade's fondest memory of her time in the program?
Eric, I hope this isn't a disappointing answer to you, for you, because Casey, the player, I don't have a specific memory planned and thought out, and so I apologize for that. But the feelings, because Shade loves feelings, is definitely the camaraderie, right? She got kicked out of her tribe, and completely abandoned, and survived in the woods for years on her own, and then thrown in jail. And the program is the first place that, one, her mark wasn't treated as a absolute, words are hard.
They are.
Bad thing. Ooh, I came up with really strong descriptions.
Absolute bad thing, sure.
Right. This is what marked her as an outcast, and this was the first time that her mark was seen as a positive thing. And then just the camaraderie of being around people who accepted her for the first time since being abandoned by her tribe, and that's what has stuck with her, and that is what has caused her to try to stick with them these past few years. So I hope vague vibes are and eloquent vocabulary are sufficient.
Eric has a secondary question. Has Shade ever considered making herself a safe house in the jungle?
100%. I have thought about doing it in game, and just as a player, didn't want to ask anybody else to navigate, like, oh, Casey's taking Shade and they're doing their own thing over there. Like, I know how difficult that must be. And our characters have been in the midst of so much. There hasn't been a ton of, safe house building time.
Right.
But Eric, yes, absolutely. She wants her bug out bag and her safe place out in the jungle. Anybody in, not anybody can come. That's wrong. Anybody in the treehouse and Ilya would be invited.
Mm-hmm. Anybody in the treehouse and Ilya. So one of the things that I was thinking about as well, Shade of the group, Shade seems to be the one most interested in, this city is terrible. Let's go out into the jungle. Everybody else, Esri, doesn't mind the jungle. It's got useful things, but Esri's interest in the jungle is kind of instrumental. It's utilitarian. Ari is obviously strongly opposed to jungle time. And Pog, we kind of get the impression, would go on adventures out into the jungle, is my impression, but would want to come back to Stormreach, where he could show off his adventuring.
Right.
Whereas Shade is really the only one who seems to enjoy going off and spending time in the jungle for its own sake. Having interacted a bunch with the Wayfinders now, and Shade asked a little bit about what employment with the Wayfinders is like. Is that something you think Shade would go for? Or is it too people-y?
That's as a player, I think I'm still trying to decide that. Part of it is my ignorance of the Wayfinders Guild. What would that entail? I guess, to be fair, Shade's ignorance as well then.
Yeah.
But absolutely, an organization that encourages and pursues jungle trips and she can make a living, very interested. I think if I'm remembering correctly, that episode is such a blur, but she asks about how much peopling she would be forced to do.
Yeah.
That's the biggest hesitance would be having a boss. You have to interact with people.
Yeah.
But She has to tour people around, so it's not like her current job isn't very people-y.
That's true. That's true. She's got her fair share of people interaction involved, but it's probably. I just got this really, really hilarious image in my head of, I imagine Shade to be very focused on what she's doing when she's out guiding people around the jungle, but I just got in my head of Shade being forced to lead around a group of people who just won't stop chatting with her. That's a very fun mental image to me.
She's just used to the trail. I can absolutely picture her. She's just like, cool tree to your left. Watch the vine. Stop. Like, it's just trying to engage as little as possible. I'm taking you to the place you asked. I will deliver you safely. You will give me money. Done.
It's kind of an April Ludgate vibe to that.
Best compliment ever. Yes. Awesome.
I mean, normally, no. Like, normally Shade is much too concerned about people. But I can imagine Shade on the job when there are people around being that way. Because, well it's
she's
like,
comfortable in the jungle.
Yeah, and the jungle is nice, and you're disturbing the niceness of it.
Exactly. We could all quietly enjoy the space separately together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But better quietly.
Of course.
Oh, that's funny.
I really am just picturing April Ludgate now going through a jungle, and it's fantastic.
And
Also,
Shade likes her animal friend more than most people that she knows, which is also an April thing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Also, never in my life have I been compared to April Ludgate.
And I would never compare Casey to April Ludgate, or most of the time Shade, but in this very specific context, I totally see it.
I'm utterly amused.
That's too funny.
And a little bit proud.
All right. So we have just a minute or two before I want to wrap it up. So a question for Casey. We are, in terms of recording, I think, approaching a point where I would probably start to call things Chapter 3, which is a couple episodes ahead of where we are right now.
That feels unreal.
Yeah, right? Well, gosh, what did we just do? 31, I guess, was what just aired. So.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We've recorded 31 episodes of this. So that's pretty crazy. What, in your opinion, in your view, what's most different about Shade now than Shade when we started playing?
Oh, that's a question that I will sit here and speak out loud while I think about it. Oh, that's so hard because I want to reference the episode that's going to air on Monday. I think that not quite in as big of a way as Pog, but I think Shade is growing in her confidence. I think that her contribution and her place in the group. I realize I spent this entire episode talking about her abandonment issues.
Right.
But I think she thinks about those things less often and is in a place where she's more able to call them what they are too. So I feel like she's grown a little bit more confident. Also, that maybe this is a better answer, and you said 1 to 2 minutes, and I'm past that.
Oh, you're fine.
But
You're fine. Keep going.
I think her ability to socialize and her interaction with people is actually more pleasant. I think she hated people when she came to the city, and she's got her three, but she also has Solarka, and she has Harish, and she has Ilya, and very quickly Ilya's family. Just her willingness to interact with people and her ability to develop relationships is improved since the beginning.
I think that's interesting. I think, you mentioned that that's obviously also happening with Pog. And I think there's a degree to which Esri is starting to figure out what's going on here to a degree. Still working on it, but I think we are starting to see Esri figure out what's going on with the group. And I think the terrible tragic irony is that we're watching it, that there's a converse reality happening for Ari, who started out absolutely the most confident and comfortable person in the group, and we're watching Ari go through this terrible breakdown over the events of the last night. At the same time that we're seeing much more confidence exhibited from some of the players the player characters that were more having a harder time with that at the beginning.
Poor Ari.
Poor Ari, indeed. Yes, Ari has had a very, very, very bad night. All right. Well.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you all so much. Thank you, Casey, for your wonderful thoughts on Shade.
I hope some of them made sense.
I think they were fine. I think they made sense. Oh, I leaned in and it threw me. There we go. New episode drops on Monday. It's a long one, and it's a lot. There's a lot to it. So hope you will come back and watch that on Monday. And next Friday will probably be me doing a topic by myself, because I'm going to pre-record it because I will be out of town. But thank you again so much for submitting your questions, for the wonderful supportive comments that we've been getting on recent episodes. That's been really great. We love being able to hear your thoughts on what's happened and your theories on what in the world is going on. And it's really flattering that you assume that I have plans or that any of this is somehow under my control. And I need that. That's a nice cat attack.
Yes.
Yes.
I wish I could show y'all. She's like just peeking her ears from behind the monitor and attacking the camera. Yeah.
Outstanding. Oh, that's too funny. Anyway, thank you all so much. This has been Khyber Shards, and thanks for rolling with us.